Okay, thanks. Okay, we are here for the February 8th, 2023 meeting of the Groveland Conservation Commission. Is there a motion to open the meeting?
Move to open the meeting.
Second?
Aye.
Second, moved and seconded, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Fred's not zooming in?
He's not on here yet.
Okay.
All right, so this is our agenda for the night here, and we will be starting the continued and new public hearings at 7:30 or afterwards. So we'll try to get through some of the other stuff before that. So the first thing on the agenda is the Pentucket Regional School District seasonal waiver request. All right, so we did do a site visit last week. I think Terry, Tom, and I were there,
And Annie.
and Annie, right? And as we heard from the rep, I think it was Matt, they wanted to request a continued seasonal restriction from tonight until April 15th.
Waiver, you mean, right?
Yes, it's a seasonal restriction waiver. All right. Nothing else on that one, right? No other documentation, just that one email?
The email, the updated construction schedule,
Oh,
and then
yes,
the
right, the updated
buffer map
constructions.
as well. And then they did fix the erosion controls that were pointed out, and Bob Danforth has been contacted about moving that equipment. The shed that it will be eventually stored in isn't completed yet, which is why it's being stored where it is.
But that's not even their stuff, right?
No, it's not WT
That's a
Rich's.
separate issue.
Yeah, that's with Bob Danforth.
Right, but
Yeah.
he agreed to
Yeah.
act as a middleman, didn't he? Or,
Bob?
I'm sorry. So yeah, so they're pretty much in compliance. It looks it looks fine. I mean, they're out sweeping several times a day, it looks like,
Not as much anymore.
because there's less.
Because they're moving less,
Yeah.
but they do have a sweeper on site, and they do still, or they have the Bobcat sweeper on site still, and they do have a sweeper going out regularly throughout the week, just not as often. They're not getting as much
Sediment.
sediment runoff and stuff now that it's not raining as much as it was before.
Move to extend the waiver to the end of the season, I guess, right?
Yeah, April 15th.
April 15th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, so just for further discussion, up on the screen is the schedule. See if I can make it bigger.
Did they have a estimate on how many days during the season they would actually be doing stuff there?
All of them.
It's,
They're actively working the site.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have it, this spreadsheet indicates how much time they expect to be working on things, but, you know, obviously,
It's not all of that section.
there's one item there that says finish date 1/27, and the status is activity started, so, you know, it's only gonna be so accurate.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering if, I mean, is it every day they're in the
Their construction entrance is within jurisdiction.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it's- Okay. It's-
And if you look, the scheduled start dates and end dates, fit in with the duration of pretty much.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I just, a lot of times somebody's building.
Right, it's a day project and they
Yeah.
want a 4-week
Yeah, so,
window to work in. Yep.
okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, then we'll take a vote. All in favor of extending the PRSD waiver through the end of the season, April 15th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, it's unanimous. Okay, let's see. We'll do the minutes next. So we've got a handout with the minutes from January 11th meeting.
I thought I saw one typo in here, but I
Yeah,
didn't
I
make
got
a
one.
note of it. There was one typo. Oh, just a typo on page 4.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too. Under seasonal restriction waiver requests. Agent, there are no new questions. I thought that was a really cool word.
Spell checker.
Yeah.
Page 4, you said?
Yeah. Otherwise, looks good.
Move to accept those minutes with the typo noticed.
Oh, this one, too.
Noted.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, unanimous.
Sorry, who seconded that motion?
I think I did.
Definitely good.
Thank you.
You want to go next? Or you want me to go next?
You can go next.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to skip down to open discussion because I've got a couple of things just to give updates on. Let's see, what did I do with it? The first is, we currently have 3 Community Preservation Act projects being considered. So this week, all 3 of them were approved by the Community Preservation Committee to move forward. So the next step will be to get them on the town warrant, present them to Finance Board, and ultimately end up at town meeting for a vote. So the 3 are, I know that I talked about this before, but just to update you. So the first one was a townwide project to preserve and protect historic trees. And that's going to include 2 areas at VZ Park. One is along Washington Street to put some new trees in that match some of the existing trees and kind of upgrade the buffer there along Washington Street. And also include the pilot project that Diana Lardo is doing at the top of the hill to come up with a way to have intensive tree growth happen. in a small area. It's an area about half an acre that we end up being planted. So the other things on that project are pursuing Tree City USA, getting some seedlings to hand out to townspeople, and also to do some preservation work on the trees in Elm Square. So that one was well received, and I think that was unanimous by the CPC. Not sure of that, but anyway, that one was accepted. And the total on that, I think, is $99,000. The next one is a phase 2 of Lucille's Cottage. Last year we voted to start looking at rehabilitation and preservation of the historic cottage there, which is kind of the last building left that's never had any real work done on it. And so this is a phase 2 to continue to build interest in the building as artist space, and working with the architect and a consultant to be able to pursue state funding and other potential historic grants. So that one also passed. And then the third one was a study of VZ Park sustainability, I would call it. So where do we want to go in the next, say, 25 years, 20 years or so, as far as running the park? Do we want to continue with the way we do it now, where we hire consultants and they work for us and we direct them? Or do we want to have the town hire employees and they do most of the work? Or third option might be to have a third party come in and take over management of any parts of the park, such as just the main building and the events there, or maybe the whole park, or just all the buildings and rentals that we do. So no decisions are made, but so what will happen is, if this gets approved, there'll be a consultant that's hired that will come in and talk to us about it, have a few public meetings, and then really investigate the options that we've got. And then it will be again up to us as to what direction we want to go in. But it will give us more information. You know, I'm pretty tied up with VZ Park, and, you know, I have my own ideas about things, but I think all of us would appreciate some outside help on what might be the best thing to do, and, you know, what are our options, and is any option better than another, and what does it really involve? So I'm excited about that one. So that one passed too. So these three will be addressed at town meeting. There are 11 CPA projects this year. We've never had 11. So this is going to be the most. So I want to make sure that our three projects don't get lost in the shuffle there at town meeting. So I'll be reminding us again when we get close to the April town meeting of what's at stake, so we can at least be ready to support those. Looks like we've got Fred coming on. So, any questions on the CPA projects?
Are the Friends of VZ involved with the sustainability?
No. Well, everyone will be involved. Anyone who has anything to do with VZ, us, our consultants
Okay.
that we currently have, the Friends of VZ, and the public in general here in Groveland. So that's the good thing about the consultants are used to having these meetings. Potentially, I think it's the same company that's doing the master plan, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So, the other one that I want to talk about is, I'd like to go to the selectmen's next meeting next week and talk about, open space and land acquisitions for the next couple of years. So, we are faced with, we've got our large properties. I think what our focus has been, without a real plan over the past couple of years, is to take donated land or purchase small parcels that connect something that we've already got, or, make sense for trails, connecting trails that already exist, or fulfilling trails. One example of that would be, Johnson's Pond. So we'd like to have more trails around Johnson's Pond. We've got VZ Park. We've got another parcel that was already approved for purchase with CPA funds. Still hasn't been done yet, but hopefully will be done soon. And that gives us quite a bit of ability to walk around almost half of the pond, so that's pretty good. But there are some other parcels involved, and so we need to pursue either easements or outright purchases, maybe on one or two more parcels. So those are the kind of examples, that we know about. But my concern is, I think we need to tell the selectmen what we're doing, because it's a lot easier to kind of prime them at a meeting about what our goals are and why we're doing this, than to just go there and ask them to approve a donation of parcel X. For instance, we voted to accept a donation on 7 Star Road. If you remember, it's like an acre, and it's all wetlands. And when John was on board, he actually took it to the Registry of Deeds and registered it. And then what happened was the assessor's office found out that that was done, and we never got a selectman vote on it. So it's kind of in limbo now. So believe me, that needs to be taken care of, but I don't want to go talk about it with them until I've kind of primed them on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and not have to go through that explanation every time. I have another donation that either a donation or a small purchase along Johnson's Pond that's going to have to come up too. So there's a few of these things, and I think it just makes sense to, kind of tell them a little bit about our idea. So our idea is, we're not so much into large purchases like Meadow Pond or the Center Street Greenway. We're kind of done with those, but we would like to, have small purchases or easements that make sense. So why are we doing this? We're doing it to kind of complete trails, or mostly it's to complete trails. But in some other cases, there's other valid reasons why we might want to.
Conservation, for example.
Yeah, or, there's a habitat issue in particular, like the one on King Street. It really isn't going to be a trail ever. It's mostly wetland, but it's habitat issues there, and so, that's really the other reason why we're interested in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, and buffers, certainly buffers
Yeah.
around the ponds and
Yeah.
things like that, when you can get that.
yeah. I mean, I think it's important for especially conservation reasons with, especially with bird species on the decline because of conversion of habitat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a map of Groveland and then color-coded for where we have?
What
our
we
pro-
have, yep,
Okay.
yes. And we currently, I don't have the exact number, but currently we have, I think, over 350 acres of conservation land. So that's pretty good because before we started all of this, actually, I think it's even more than that, but we've added a significant, like over 100 acres over the past 10 years or so, so.
How much does the state own?
Oh, the state owns a lot
Like
more
a
than
third
that.
of Groveland, isn't it? It's a huge
Yeah.
number.
Yep. The state owns a significant amount up by, up by where Fred lives.
Byfield
Hmm.
Road. Byfield Road.
Yeah, what's the name of the pond up there?
Crane.
Crane Pond.
Yeah.
Yes,
Crane management area.
yeah, the state's thing there. So I forget what the overall number for open space, but I think it's like 25% of Groveland is protected open space.
That would be an impressive article to show people.
Yeah. Any other ideas on that? So that's a good idea to get a map and have the selectmen see that.
Color-coded for town,
Yeah.
color-coded for conservation.
Yeah, yeah,
And then what we would, I guess, what we're thinking about, or what would make sense.
yeah,
Especially with Johnson's Pond.
yep.
Or are there delicate areas that still need to be?
Get him to do the color.
Conserved.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what comes up is small parcels that are kind of left over when a development was made, and like nobody can build on them, and nobody really cares about them. We had there's a couple of those on King Street out by, near Georgetown. And, we kind of went back and forth on those, but those are the kinds of things, if we know about them in advance and we can say, well, that they're near two others and maybe we could eventually put trails on them. But I guess the real idea is, people will say, well, what are you going to do with these? We don't always know what we're going to do or when we're going to do it, but I consider them investments in the future, because once they're gone, you're never going to get them back. So I think it's a worthwhile investment.
I agree.
Okay. Any other items not reasonably anticipated at the time of posting tonight?
Did you want me to talk about or I can talk about it later, the truck that was going up the VZ up Nuns Hill,
Oh,
the sledding?
yeah,
incident?
you can talk about that. You see, we've got maybe about 3 more minutes, so.
I think it was January 16th when I looked back at the date. I just happened to be driving to the barn. It was like 5 o'clock at night, and there was a truck it was dark out, and there was a truck parked on the other side of the trees, so at the very base of Nuns Hill, and to illuminate a path down the hill so that some teenagers could snowboard down the hill, where they had made a snow ramp that directly next to one of those large, I think it's a maple tree. So like, here's the maple tree, here's the snow ramp that they would board up, I guess, land on the picnic table. Remember when we had to have one of the picnic tables replaced last year? Land on the picnic table, slide off the picnic table down the other end. So I pulled over and called the police, because this has been a topic of discussion for multiple reasons. And they did come. I did take some pictures of the truck, and it was teenagers who said that they were just trying to have fun when I said, you know, you're not supposed to be parked here, it's after dark, you have a ramp next to a tree, it's dangerous, all the things. So they were quite angry and actually verbally abusive, like maximally. And so then the police came and they just told them to stop. Nobody got in any trouble. But I guess I just wanted to readdress, like, it was not a pleasant experience, to say the least. But so I guess I just wanted to readdress if we want to do anything
Ready
at
for
the
some
bottom of
rocks
Nuns
now?
Hill.
Yeah.
I am actually. So I'm ready to
that's-
do whatever. I was really, really
How
angry
about
that
that?
night.
That's
How
part
about
of the
that?
tree project.
I mean, one of those kids, I mean, the week
could-
before, two people had just died up in New Hampshire skiing into trees.
Yep,
So
yep.
like,
No, your concerns are absolutely valid. Kids just want to have fun.
well,
Things aren't going to change anytime soon.
not only that, but then I went
But
back after the
rocks-
snow
rocks
had
would help.
melted, and they had ripped up when the kid pulled off, just to show me how tough he was, he ripped a bunch of donuts right in front of me. And so I went back and took a picture of the damage he did to the
Well, you got his
grounds.
license plate.
I did,
Yeah, so,
but the cops didn't do anything when they came.
well, we can go after him for damages if that's
Okay.
what it takes.
Okay, that's a good idea.
If that's our jurisdiction. I don't know whose
We'll have them
jurisdiction.
come
it
out
is.
there in the spring and fix it.
Well, that's,
Grass seed down and
Sure.
spend 2 hours fixing
sure.
it.
Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah, so that,
but that's a VZ Park issue, not a
yeah,
Concom issue.
that's the area that buffer along Washington Street is where will come under the CPA project. So we'll get to decide how we want to prevent things like that from happening.
Diane and Vanessa thought that maybe we should meet with the chief of police about it as well, just so we could try some enforcement anyway.
Sure.
Move to open the hearing portion.
Second.
At 7:30. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Oh,
Oh, we're gonna have to roll call. Terry,
aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Mike, yes, Fred,
Bill?
thank you.
And I'll
Bill?
give an eye to it.
And Bill,
Oh, and Bill.
sorry about that, Bill.
Couldn't see you with the mask on.
Right. Like a ninja.
All right. So, the first hearing tonight is for, it's a Groveland RDA for the removal of trees at 8 Merrimack River Road. Let's see, where is it? All right, so this is a letter from applicant.
Aye.
Is making an application for permit to remove approximately 10 trees which have been infected by ash borers, are dead or dying. The trees are weakened, could fall, creating a hazardous condition for anyone accessing the waterfront and dock directly beneath it. In addition, some of the trees could damage the dock ramp and the dock itself should they fall. Seeking permission to remove the trees without disturbing the surrounding area by employing a professional tree service to complete the work while the ground is frozen in the area. And
Tell us
we-
about the frozen ground. Tell us about the frozen ground.
Well, maybe not as frozen as it has been in last year.
Yeah. I don't think it's frozen at all. I was out digging in my garden today, so.
Yeah. Well, it might still get cold. Winter's not over. But it might not be able to do it this season at all.
Because,
because the ground's not frozen.
oh, because it's
I don't
it's
wanna
too
bring-
wet to get back there?
Yeah, it'll make a mess. All the trees are dying, and there's some big ones.
Oh, now we know all about the ash borers. Yep, yep.
Yeah, and I have a couple more pictures just to show how it's progressed. There's a couple of trees have no bark on them at all anymore. So, oh, sure. So it has progressed and some of the trees have no bark on them at all. So once I get direction from the board here, I would contact Kevin and have him come out and give me his advice. I'm not, fixed on removing them all at once. It's gonna be expensive as well. I wanna just stay ahead of it and, with the board's permission, take out the ones that, Kevin tells me are the most dangerous.
Are you gonna replace them?
I would consider that. Is there a recommendation are there borer-resistant ash trees available, or replace it with something else?
Doesn't seem to exist.
Yeah.
No.
That's a bad story. Probably something like a red maple or something.
Yeah, I would,
Someone that likes the wet and,
yeah,
I think our
something small caliber.
Yeah, yeah, and our concern is just for the erosion, something
Absolutely.
to hold it together. You don't want to be losing bank all the,
There's at least 2 of the trees that are right on the bank.
is
So-
it his advice to work when it's frozen, or is that just your speculation?
The last time that I had to take a tree down, that was the advice, wait till the ground freezes.
Yeah, I remember that.
How close did they have to get to the trees with the truck?
I think with that one, they never brought a truck down. It wasn't that big. They had a creeper that
Yeah,
had treads
okay.
that was, pretty gentle on the ground. But they want to get a hold of it before they cut it.
Are all the trees clearly infected? I mean, obviously, the one that has no bark has issues, but, or is this just your review of the trees saying that you think they're all diseased?
They are all clearly infected. Some are progressed further than others.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see clearly the bark is coming off.
And you can see the hole, I think they make holes in the bark where they're boring in.
I haven't looked that closely. But, literally at the base of the trees that are really affected, there's a ring of bark.
Missing.
It's just all coming down. It's startling how fast it progresses.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a death sentence. Those trees they're gone.
Yeah.
It's the hemlocks have got a much better deal than the ashes do. This is fast moving, and it's a shame.
But I would be open to replacing them.
Okay, maybe we could look for a list of shrubs and trees. That would be a good idea for you.
Yeah.
So what do we want to allow on this?
I'm hesitant to do a blanket allowance,
Yeah,
just because it can, I'm worried if somebody else who lives on the water looks at it and says, wow, they're clear cutting next to the bank. I'm gonna do the same thing.
Yeah,
Not
right.
realizing the details of why it's happening. I guess, I'm not a tree expert. I can see the ones that are missing the bark. My assumption would be if you go to a tree and all the bark is sloughing off, it's probably diseased of some sort. I'd feel more comfortable if a professional, either KMA, whoever, someone who has the knowledge would look at it and say, yes, this is a danger, and either mark them, and maybe we approve it that way, or
You go take a look
go take.
after
I
they've
mean,
been
the
marked.
last ones he took down were ash too. They were, right? Weren't,
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was.
like it was
but
pretty
that was
clearly emerald ash borers.
that was broken off. That
Yeah.
had broken at the base. So I'd be open to having Kevin come out and mark the trees that he would recommend taking out, and then let you guys know, and you can approve those.
yep.
And if you could confirm that it's better when it's frozen, I can't see this gonna make too much difference unless it's really frozen.
Well, he says he's hesitant to bring a truck down.
Right,
Yeah.
right, oh, they get stuck,
Right.
yeah.
But maybe he could use the creeper on all of them. I don't know if that smaller device can handle the trees that are this big.
He doesn't have like a crane that he can reach over and
No, it's too far.
too far.
Yeah.
All right, so,
They're together, weren't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just a
so
matter of minimum.
if he gets the okay, I mean, if they mark them and indeed all of them should be removed, we won't be meeting again until March 8th. I don't know if the ground is gonna freeze after
It's
that.
not looking good. It's
Right?
supposed to be 50 to,
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's gonna freeze between now and then either, but,
well, that's what I
probably
mean,
more,
it's not off to a good start.
more likely this month, but less likely in March.
I'd be fine, Mike, if we did something where we put conditions of Annie's allowed to go out and make the decision for us. If they're clearly marked and if the feeling is that the ground is not, we're not gonna create problems by going on the ground whether it's frozen or not.
Yep,
I don't wanna, I'm hesitant to say you can take 10 trees down on your property, because then it's willy-nilly, it could be willy-nilly, you know?
Well, can we make it an order of condition to replace it with appropriate native plants, trees, shrubs, whatever?
yep.
Yeah, I guess, I'm all for it, I just think there's a difference between having people replace trees because they illegally took them down versus it's dying anyways and it's a safety hazard, and so it's great that you want to replace them, but
I mean, you can
it
see
can get
at
very
least,
expensive if we do like a 1-for-1 or something like that.
yeah.
Well, they don't have to be large trees.
Yeah, and I don't, I mean, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, he's gonna have a great view. Right? And that's what people across the way and riding by
Oh,
are
yeah.
gonna see it. So but, we understand that about the ash borer, so that's understandable. I think our reason for saying, replace them, and again, I wouldn't put 10 somethings back there. I would pick something, reasonable and do that, just so anybody seeing it knows that something's happening there.
Well, and you also want to stabilize the bank. I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
certainly in your interest,
Exactly.
and probably a bunch of shrubs would be a better surface than a big tree, which that thing blows over and it rips out half the bank.
Right.
That
Yeah.
happens too.
It does,
Yeah.
no, I've been out on
We've been
those
all
boats.
properties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you have a dock that's directly affected, you said, so by all 10 of the trees? Because, I mean, dead trees aren't always a bad thing, they do provide habitat.
True.
So I guess if all 10 were not affecting necessarily your living space or your, the dock or whatever, then, I mean, I personally would like to leave dead trees if possible, but I hear what you're saying.
those are particularly brittle trees,
those
though.
Yeah.
They will break at the worst
Oh,
possible
yeah.
time.
I mean, we saw that
And
before,
they-
right?
Right. And they.
And they have
will do
vision. They
damage
know
as
where to
they come
fall.
down,
Yeah,
they'll take
Yeah.
out live trees.
yeah.
So let me give you this perspective. We've been in this house for 27 years. My wife has wanted those trees cut down for all 27, for the view. We are being, we are looking, we're on the 2-year plan. We're downsizing, we're moving out. So my wife is having a fit that, okay, we're gonna put the house on market and now you're gonna cut the trees down. So it is purely because they're diseased. I'm big on preserving the bank, and I know that the trees are what prevents it from eroding away. Even with the trees, we lose bank every year. So I'd be keen to replace it with plants with strong root systems and plant them strategically, along the bank to keep it in place for the future owners.
Yep, I appreciate that. So, but yeah, I think where you were going, if we had something sort of proactively written that said, get an assessment,
Yeah.
Annie can check, and then, and then minimal damage to the yard, which you'd want anyways, but,
Right.
And I'll ask Kevin about which trees to leave. Because there are, some that are off to the side.
If there are ash trees there, they're gonna
they're
die.
gone.
Yeah.
But
they're-
they'll, but will they fall? And if they fall, if they're far enough away,
Well, isn't part of the treatment to get rid of the trees and like burn them so they don't, so the beetles, no, seriously.
Yeah,
so
no, I get
beetles-
it.
oh yeah,
Kill the
the
beetles.
trees have to be, you
Yeah.
can't sell them for
So,
firewood.
so leaving them standing. is-
Contaminated.
But leaving them standing isn't gonna help mitigate the problem. It's
Oh,
gonna.
yeah.
It's just a. It's
A
just
breeding ground.
You're talking about habitat. It's
Yeah.
ash borer habitat.
Yeah, but they feed woodpeckers too. I don't know. Yeah,
Okay,
I know,
okay.
Okay.
Personally, I'm fine if someone who's a professional says they're diseased, I'm fine with taking them down. We need to somehow have some sort of check and balance that,
Yeah.
yes, we've seen them, yes, there's X amount of trees, they're about this size, and we've given permission to
Yeah.
have them taken
And
down.
my guess is if we have a summer this year that's anywhere near like this past one, that's gonna provide a more stable surface than frozen ground even.
If it's dry.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask him that. And
Okay.
I would prefer, not to do anything during the seasonal restriction
Muddy
if we can avoid it. And if he says, sure, if it's hard as a rock, then that's a good time to cut too. So, I don't know what your lawn looked like in July, but mine looked like
Parched.
it was kind of like a paved surface. Yeah.
All right, so here's a motion. Move to decide a negative determination, which means no impact, allowing up to 10 trees to be removed after review by an arborist or tree expert, and replacement by 10 suitable trees recommended by the commission.
Or shrubs.
Yeah, I would put trees or shrubs.
Okay,
Somebody want to make that motion?
so moved.
This is on the recommendation of the arborist, but are we gonna go take a look after that recommendation has been made?
I mean, you can, but Annie can do it, so.
Well, somebody, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Personally, I'm fine if Andy goes and looks, just so that we have some backup on our side.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? So, this also includes, of course, the tree company telling us when, because I think we're willing to allow it to be done sooner than later if it's better to be done
Right.
so it doesn't damage the ground. All right.
And where they are is tidal? So
Sorry?
where the trees are is tidal, so do they ever have their, are they covered with water at times?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Springtime, the whole area floods.
Okay.
Yeah, so swamp maple would probably be pretty good.
Elderberries are there.
I want to say it was Wakefield or somebody, we had a
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk
whole
about that.
listing of.
We're gonna have to talk about that at our next meeting and vote to have that be one of our procedures on trees so that we know what it says, what we think. All right, so we'll take a vote then. Terry,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Mike, yes, Fred? Yeah, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for coming in
thanks for
and
trying.
not just cutting them. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we like that.
I'll get you more information when I, get the tree guy in.
Yep.
Oh, all right. The next hearing is a continuation of Zero Center Street, which is not really true, but it's parcel at the end of Center Street. Lot number 2, notice of intent, Groveland notice of intent for a new driveway and drainage. So, if you recall, at our last meeting, we voted to have a peer reviewer come in. We were able to get Greg Hockmuth to participate as our peer reviewer. And so he did send us some written recommendations. And after that, we have the changes in another document that we received today from the applicant about the changes. So I'll turn it over to you, Greg, first.
Sure. Good evening. For the record, Greg Hockman from Williams and Sparagus. Thanks. Thank you for the opportunity to review this project. We did have a chance to go out to the site a couple times. I wanted to get out to the site just to see it before the predicted snowstorm, which I was able to do. I understand there was some concern that there may be a stream and possibly isolated confined basin depression, potentially a vernal pool. So I did get out. I got eyes on the ground before we had any snow. I didn't review any of the resource areas, and I was by myself. Then we set up a scheduled site visit with Matt Sweisberg from he was the project wetland scientist, and Annie was out there, and we were able to review all the resource area boundaries with confidence. There was a slight dusting, but you could still see the leaves, all the vegetation, and we could review the soils very easily. We were able to dig and auger wherever we needed to. It's a pretty obvious wetland edge. It's not quite a TOA slope wetland, but there is a contour that the wetland seems to follow. The soils go from upland to wetland very abruptly, so hydric soils are very easy to identify. And the vegetation also changes abruptly, upland plants to hydrophytes. There is a little bit of a broad swale that is where that zoning table is located on the plan that heads towards Center Street. And that broad swale eventually channelizes into an intermittent stream that parallels Center Street and flows to the north before entering a culvert that goes under Center Street to a much larger wetland system. So I know we're out of season, and in my letter I did point out that a waiver is required, or the commission can reserve the right to take another peek in the spring. It's up to you. I don't think you need to wait until next spring. I think we're going to see the same thing then. I recommended potentially a waiver request, which I know was submitted. I do feel very confident with what we were able to see out there, and I don't think the line will change, whether we wait till spring or not. So that's one piece. I did go through the application. I went through the plan. I did have a couple questions, and I should point out I did have a chance to review the revised information before the hearing. I didn't put together a letter. I figured we could talk about it tonight. But based on my quick review of everything that was submitted by Millennium, I think they addressed all of the comments that I had. But I'd be happy to go through those. There's not too many. The first was more of a question. I just wondered whether or not the lots existed yet. And as Matt pointed out, they do. And in fact, the plan has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. I think it was an A&R subdivision plan. It really didn't change anything that I was reviewing. The requirement is to apply for all applicable permits before you file a notice of intent, but a subdivision is not an applicable permit, believe it or not, at least an A&R subdivision. So it wouldn't have mattered. I did point out that it didn't appear that the applicant or property owner signed page 9 of 9 of the WPA Form 3. I do think it's always a good idea to have the applicant sign that. It sounds like they're willing to. I understand that Millennium is authorized to sign on their behalf, but I do think somebody should sign as the applicant.
The hard copy I have in my office is signed.
Great.
It was the digital copy that I had sent over that hadn't had a
Perfect.
signature on it.
Perfect. And then I had a couple questions about just the proposed erosion and sedimentation controls. I think the locations made complete sense. I just thought with the steep slopes directly above the resource area, it looks like a good chunk of this wetland is a result of a hillside seep, so I do think there is a pretty high water table. I thought the erosion control should be beefed up a little bit from a 9-inch to a 12-inch. And then just clarify that it's actually a mulch sock, something a little bit more substantial. I know a lot of people try to use straw wattles. I'm not a big fan of straw wattles in a situation like this. They were not proposing straw wattles. They were always called silt socks. So I just thought a mulch sock would clarify it. And any reference to any type of hay bale, I recommended straw bales. Hay bales can have weed seeds, and straw bales are generally a lot cleaner. And that the silt fence be trenched. I think that was the intent, but just to make sure of that, I thought trench should be added, and they did add those labels. And that was to the plan and the revised project narrative, by the way, that was submitted today. We talked about the waiver request, and that was submitted. I read that. It seemed appropriate to me. A couple notes that I had on the plan. The 25 and 50, I can't remember if the 75 was on there originally. It wasn't. But the 25 was, it just said 25 feet from wetlands. I just thought it should say 25-foot no-cut zone, and that the 75-foot no-build zone should be added. Those were all added. And it's helpful to have the 50 on too, which they had, just for Title V setbacks. We talked about the erosion control notes. Those have all been updated on the plans. The well was originally proposed in the buffer zone, I believe, or a little closer to the wetland. I just thought a slurry pit would be a good idea. A lot of times when they're drilling, that well slurry can try to get down and start piling up against the erosion controls. So what a slurry pit is, it's just a half circle or an open square on one side of bales or erosion controls that the slurry's pumped into, just as an added layer for water to settle out any solids before it goes around and down towards the wetlands. A lot of the well drillers do them anyways, but they've moved the well and are open to a slurry pit. I wasn't sure about the work on the lot to the bottom of the page. There was some activity in the buffer zone, but Annie pointed out on the site walk that an RDA was filed for those activities, so that's a non-issue. And then it looks like, things get pretty tight where the driveway enters onto Center Street, and I think the intent was to narrow down the driveway from 12 to 10 and tighten up the grading in an effort to stay out of the 25-foot no disturb. This plan doesn't show any work in the no disturb, but it looked like there was a finished contour missing. I think it was the 140 contour. It went from 142 proposed to 140 existing, and it was very close. So that would have been a very steep slope. So they took a look at it, they revised the plan, they added the 140 finish contour, and all work is still outside the 25-foot no disturb. But just something to keep an eye on when the as-built comes in. It's shown as 10 feet in that section only. The rest of it's 12. Typically, driveways get a little wider before they enter a road, but I understand why they did it, and 10 feet is wide enough. So I don't see any problem with that. But those were the only comments that I had. I should point out that it does appear that the project complies with all of the required setbacks. All works outside the 25-foot no disturb, and any structure requiring a building permit is outside the 75. They've proved through a correspondence that came after the first public hearing that they're below the 40% threshold for tree removal. I did review that. I like the seed mixes that they're proposing on the slopes. I think eventually they'll turn back into woods. It's going to take a little time, but it doesn't appear that the intent is to maintain those slopes as manicured lawn. Let's see, what else did I miss? So there is a bit of a low point where it looked like somebody had mined some gravel out in this general area. But it doesn't appear that it holds water, and certainly not long enough that it would support vernal pool species. So there isn't.
Percolates pretty quickly.
The soils seem to be pretty sandy from everywhere we augured, at least in the upper part of the soil. But I didn't see any evidence of standing water.
Okay.
So there is an isolated confined depression, but I'm 100% sure it's not a vernal pool.
Okay, we were worried.
It's like a hole in sand.
worried
Yep.
about
And
that.
we had no way of knowing that, so.
Yep.
That's why
Yep.
we pulled you in.
Yeah, and we looked, I talked to Matt about it, the wetland scientist, to see if he had observed anything down there. There's no watermarks on the trees or the rocks or the logs or anything, and in fact, the leaves aren't even silt stained.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, he poo-pooed us when we brought this possibility up, but didn't provide the sort of information that you are about the soil and about the lines of sedimentation and stuff. So this is helpful. This is
Yep.
that's why we hired you, or had them hire you.
And as far as the stream goes, there is an intermittent stream, but in order for that to be perennial, it would have to have at least a half square mile watershed.
We never suggested it was perennial.
Right, and I just wanted, the subcatchment here isn't even close to that, so it's not mapped as a stream, and the subcatchment's way too small. But there is an intermittent stream that parallels the road.
And you went down to where the culvert is that goes under the road.
Yep, yeah, and it looks like on the opposite side of Center Street, there is a little bit of a drainage ditch there that does carry water, but I don't think that's a jurisdictional wetland resource area yet. I think it's probably on its way to becoming one. Every time they build the pavement up, it just pushes more water that gets trapped along the road. And we did walk way back to where the test pits were done for the septic system and where the house is proposed. And there is a flat area in there with some high bush blueberry, but it's not a wetland. There's a little bit of a saddle. But it's definitely uplands.
it just seems like such a sensitive area. So,
Yeah, and as you go further back, of course, it keeps rising and then it drops down, and there's a very productive wetland system down there that does hold water, but it's well over 100 feet from the proposed activities.
Concerned about the extent of grading that's gonna be done?
So I don't see any other way to get back there. I mean, there's going to be grading. They could tighten it up to get it further from the resource area, but then you'd be in a steeper slope situation. And really, 3-to-1 is what they're proposing, and that's a pretty good slope above a wetland. Anything steeper than that, it's tough to stabilize, especially with a slow germinating seed mix like this. I think the seed mix is a good choice. Because it's a conservation mix.
Greg, how about some retaining walls along some of the more, the parts that really bother me are, there's no work being done in the no disturb zone, theoretically. Equipment's gonna go in there. But there are 3 spots where it goes right up to it with grade work being done.
Yeah.
And I would feel much more comfortable, because I don't feel very comfortable right now, if there were some sections of retaining wall that push back the activity 15, 20 feet required, so it'd be a gentler slope and then a wall, and then the normal gradient. And I took Annie today to Marion Way, Mike, you remember all that Cool Yards
Yep.
thing over in Marion Way? And they have they're built on on the side of a hill. And they have, Annie took some pictures. Are you able to get those up, or
Oh, no, I
didn't download them? Okay.
them to Mike.
And it's much bigger than what I was thinking of. I'm thinking of, maybe 5 or 6 feet of a wall in a few key spaces just to push back the activity 15, 20 feet. And that would, preserve you'd be able to have that smaller grade in the area. You wouldn't have to bring in as much fill also.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there were wetlands proposed to be altered, or a situation where they were asking for a waiver into the no disturb, or any unique wildlife habitat components out here that we were trying to protect, I could easily see the commission pushing for walls. And certainly, walls are appropriate in certain situations, and I hear you loud and clear. It would push the work a little further from the wetland, but walls can also become barriers to wildlife and future maintenance problems. It's up to you guys. There's nothing that I could
That's why I was
find.
just suggesting having a couple short sections to minimize, number one, to minimize the cost, but also to minimize the overall impact to movement. Like, you gotta let those coyotes run around.
I mean, I will say there's nothing in your regs that requires that. Like I mentioned before, if there was a unique wildlife habitat component observed or something, I think you'd have a little bit more weight. But for all intents and purposes, this does comply with the regulations. It is a buffer zone project, but it's, probably more of a question for the applicant. But I can't find anything that would
Well,
force walls.
your objection to the barrier to wildlife movement is a valid one. And that's why I'm throwing it at you as well as.
But also,
staff.
depending on the type of wall,
Right.
it can become habitat for wildlife. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
But, I didn't observe anything unique out here. It is a nice spot.
I just worry with people building right up to and into the wetland. I mean, it's gonna be mosquito heaven.
Well, that's their problem.
I know, but then people want to spray, and then they get mad because you don't want them to spray.
Spraying's not gonna.
And I should point out too, and I'm sure you're aware, that this is a single-family house lot. It's a subdivision of 4 or fewer lots, so the stormwater management standards don't apply. And I didn't see anything in the regs that would require any type of drainage calculations or stormwater management.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like any of this is gonna fundamentally affect where the water's going. I mean, just
Right.
looking at it, it's sure, it's changing it's putting in a lot of fill and it's changing the slope, but there's only one place that water can go.
Right.
And it's not gonna deviate by much, so I don't think that really, I don't see this setting up any gullies, for instance.
Or pushing water onto abutting parcels.
Right.
From what I observed, the abutting parcels are much higher in elevation than the proposed activities.
Yep. No, I mean, it pretty much follows the existing contour lines, it just pushes them out
Yep.
closer to the wetland.
Greg, so we were told at the last meeting that they'll be cutting 94 trees on the property, all live trees. And so we asked if they would be replaced, and the reply was that they would be happy to add some trees. So what do you have any thoughts on that, as far as what we might ask for?
Yeah, I think anything, anything facultative would do really well out here. I know there are some pines on the property, but, you know, some of these cuts, I think it's gonna be damp on those slopes. So I think, you know, anything, red maple or anything like that would do really well out here. But there's a whole bunch of trees that would also fit that category.
What's your thought on trees versus wetlands or bushes? Or just do a mix, or, like, is there anything that's gonna help the slope stay a little bit better long-term?
So I think eventually that seed mix that's specified is gonna do really well here. But, you know, I mean, it's up to the applicant what they want to propose. Some of it might be for aesthetics, but I think any type of native shrub would be a fine choice out here. Again, something in the facultative or wetter range. If it's on the north side of the driveway, that would be my suggestion. And berry-producing shrubs are always good. I know the blueberries are doing well out here, the winterberries.
Well, and just get back to my wall. If you have a wall, you're not having to cut down quite so many trees.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe not a huge number, but it would probably spare 10 or 20 trees if you pushed it back in those three areas.
Would you like me to speak to the wall question?
Please do.
Because
That's why we're here.
I didn't want to cut Greg off.
Yeah.
We did look at the possibility of walls in specific areas as a way to pull back the fill. The reason we didn't propose them mainly was cost. Right now, the retaining walls that we're seeing spec are about $55 a square foot of vertical foot that's exposed. So when you're talking about, you know, a 100-foot wall that's maybe only 2 or 3 feet tall, you're talking something that's $10,000 to $20,000 for a small wall, and we're not gaining a lot from it. All we're really able to do is pull it back a few feet, and the intent here is for this to be essentially returned, as Greg suggested, returned back to a wooded area that's not maintained when we're done. So we didn't want any hard structures in there. We wanted it to be, you know, naturally wooded again at some point for it to grow back in. One of the things that I had tossed about as an idea, and I had actually mentioned it to Annie on the phone, if the concern is the slope and making sure that it's stabilized, and the seed mix that we're proposing is a little bit slower germinating. One of the things that we could offer up in this area here is an erosion control blanket that would be put down to help hold the slope together until the seed can take place and take hold. And it would help hold the seed in place as well so it grows. So that's something we could propose in addition to the traditional erosion control that's being proposed along the 25-foot no-cut. That, I think, has shown success in a lot of different sites to help hold slopes together while you're waiting for that grass and that shrub mix to grow in. We'd be happy to plant some, like I said, some shrubs in here that would provide some root systems that would help hold that slope together in addition to the seed mix that were proposed. We could mix that in with that seed mix and spread it throughout. We'd be doing things like low bush blueberry and berry, you know, things that are good for habitat value that would provide nutrients for the animals that live in that area as well. So that would be something we'd be open to. The tree, we talked at the last meeting, as the chairman suggested, about putting some trees in there, and we were open to that idea. The question really came down to is, you know, the species, how many, and how expensive eventually that would be. You know, trees, I think as you suggested at the prior hearing, can get expensive once you start throwing a lot in there. So shrubs, you know, throwing a bunch of shrubs in there as part of the seed mix and doing some more mature shrubs in, you know, spread out through there might end up being more effective at holding the slope together without increasing the cost significantly on the applicant. So those are all things that we're open to, the erosion control blanket, and definitely, you know, adding in some shrubs into that mix as well and getting that in that side slope on the northern side of the driveway where the embankment's the steepest.
Would you be willing to do a dozen red maples, say 2 inches, 1 to 2 inches diameter?
You said a dozen? I don't think that would be all that expensive. An individual red maple is probably under $100, you know, right in that ballpark. So a dozen of them wouldn't be a huge expense. I think that would be reasonable.
Does it gain you that much, Mike, to have a tree that big? I mean, I'd rather, you can get little trees, you can get like 2 or 3 year old saplings
Yep.
for a couple bucks a piece and put in a few hundred of them.
Yeah.
It's more expensive to plant them than it is to buy
I
them.
am, yeah.
But that might provide more erosion control, and those things catch up. By the time, 5 years down the line, those 2 foot tall seedlings are 6, 8, 10 feet tall.
Sure, sure. I mean, I think throughout the area that we're talking here, I don't know if I'd recommend a couple hundred of them.
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is the scale can,
Sure.
15 to 20 feet on center if you wanted to develop into healthy trees.
Mm-hmm.
But you could certainly put some similar sized shrubs,
Right.
smaller shrubs in between.
spot them in.
You know, hazelnuts would do really well on
Yeah.
that slope.
Native hazelnut.
Those are sturdy, they're cheap, they're native.
Critters like them.
Plums are nice.
Cloves.
What if we do something where we say, you know, whatever the number is, a small number of more mature trees that are like 1 to 2 inch in size, and then probably a larger number of smaller trees and shrubs, and just come up with something that's reasonable from a cost perspective and actually does the job of, you know, maintaining the slope
Sure.
as quickly as possible, and also giving it sort of some chance of looking like what it is now, eventually.
So we could come up with a reasonable planting plan for that area there with those types of plants, the hazelnuts, the red maple, and some additional shrubbery that could go in between smaller sized trees, larger sized trees, a mix of them, and provide that to the board.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if everybody.
We'll close the hearing tonight, but if you can put that together, get it to Annie. Annie will include it in the orders of condition, and then our approval will be when we sign it, so.
Right. I could have it to Andy by the end of the week, and
Yep.
so you'd be able to sign off on it pretty quick once you
Yeah,
have
I
that.
think you've got a general idea of what we're looking for.
Do you have any other thoughts, Annie, about any of it?
What do you think, Greg? I know you've worked on a couple of projects in town where we've occasionally had issues with large quantities of dirt moving around. Does the blanket he suggests, what's your experience been? Is that a good way to go about it? Should we insist on certain areas where it's really steep to do that? Or do you think it's maybe not necessary, or it depends on the weather, or?
I think the erosion control blanket's a great idea. It also acts as a tackifier. It helps hold moisture in. The one thing you just want to be sure of is that it's something that is going to disappear.
Right.
You know, not something that's going to be a problem for wildlife or, and most of the blankets now are biodegradable. But this isn't too steep, so I don't think you'd need anything really thick or heavy. But I do think it's a good idea.
Can you suggest, can we be more specific so that they know exactly what to do?
Yeah. Yep, we can make some recommendations, and we usually get ours from E.J. Prescott, which is a local distributor, and they have all sorts of different erosion control products, including the netting. We can come up with something, or they can come up with something for us to review. It's whatever the commission would like to see.
Personally, I'm fine with either. I'm not an expert in erosion blankets.
I think if they wrap it into the planting plan,
Right.
and then just a sort of a cursory look, Greg, if you could just take a look. and
Mhm.
say, Yes, it's the right stuff.
And do you guys still require the markers to keep folks out of the
Yes.
wetlands? Has anybody talked about where those are going?
I'd like to put
Slipped
them on
off
100
our
foot myself.
talk here.
Yeah,
It might be
right.
worth getting those on a plan too, just so there's no confusion when it comes time for construction.
Put them on other people's property.
No,
Because like this one right here,
well,
this is the 100 foot.
right, no, I know. So I'm thinking
Very
more here
little.
because the chance of somebody looking at it and saying, oh, I just built a nice, beautiful house, I want a nice lawn that goes all the way down here, is really great. That's why I think we need to put some markers up there.
So you're not particularly concerned about reminding people about the driveway or
Well,
maybe fewer, for bigger distance between markers and
yeah.
more along here.
So my concern, you, or whoever brought it up about the 10-foot width driveway on the end, my thought is on the driveway, up to a certain point, we should probably specify you're allowed to have grass of a certain distance off the driveway, and then you can't have any more, because you need something for snow removal and just, you're not gonna have woods on the side of your driveway, but to prevent people from, going way back, and then there's gonna be areas, yeah, you may build it to the 25 no-cut zone, and then someone's gonna move in, and a year later, they're gonna be like, oh, I can't see when I pull out of my driveway, so I'm just gonna take all these trees down, or whatever, they're gonna go into the 25 no disturb zone. So how do we prevent that? I mean, we don't wanna put a granite marker there, because that's just,
Why not?
what if
They'll
somebody
hit it.
slips on the road and they hit it? Now I guess it's no difference than a tree at that point.
We'd set it back a little bit anyways. It wouldn't be out near the road. There's a stone wall here and a little bit of a change
Yeah,
in
what if
grade
they
from
hit the
road
stone
up.
wall?
Yeah.
So we'd set it right behind the wall, right behind it.
What if we have them, do we want to continue the stone wall for a little bit on the 25-foot?
Oh, you mean curl it around?
So it looks
Build
aesthetically pleasing?
build a compatible stone wall, not compatible, a
Well, the-
architecturally,
Similar, yeah, not like a
Similar.
formal, I'm just throwing it out there, like something, where the stones are just placed on top of each other as opposed to a formal, very structured stone wall.
So it is going to dive off pretty steep. So I'm not sure if folks would be down there trying to do anything anyways. I'm not sure.
well, you never know.
So starting over here by the 25, near the back of the retaining wall, or the stone wall that's there, put something here as a marker, and then maybe come straight across, and we get the 25 cutting, the tree line itself, we're not cutting into it, but the 25 where it dives back up in here, put another marker in here. Essentially, once somebody's living there, they're gonna connect the dots, it's gonna be a straight shot across.
Maybe.
Yeah, that might work.
And so put something here, and then maybe a bit over here at the corner. And so you get three that should be easy to see between, because this is gonna be, essentially, a wetland conservation, wildlife seed mix that's down there. It's not super tall trees, so you'd be able to see between the markers. And then over time, that would all grow in and start to grow up and become more of a natural habitat, wildlife, with taller shrubs and stuff in there. It might become more difficult to see them then, but you're gonna have the mature trees behind them that are, protecting that last 25-foot buffer. So we'd have those three coming in through here. And then, even though we're filling, and grading and then restabilizing through here, we could take it from here and do the same thing, throw another one up here at the corner, you'd have a straight shot between there. So you'd end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe, something back this way here that just kind of, just says, we're not clearing any more trees.
Yeah. I would think 3 along, like you suggested, sort of following the contour of the driveway, and then maybe 2 at the top on the 100-foot
Throw me a marker.
would, I think seems reasonable.
I mean, literally, throw me the marker.
Throw it at them.
So you want one, like right here in the corner,
Yep.
one
Kind of like right there.
right,
Do you want a red pen or something that's a little, I guess that's not
no,
small,
it's a
okay.
different color. One here,
And one at the corner there.
one here.
And I was suggesting here, but if you wanted something in the middle.
What about like here and here?
Well, I'd say at least 3 along here, because this is where the temptation is going to occur. So, something like that.
So
And
from
then-
here, jump out to the 100, essentially where this wall is, it's gonna be just off the driveway.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you normally require markers at the 100-foot buffer?
we
I'd
would.
like to, but
like
it
to,
isn't
yeah.
always
I mean, the problem is
possible.
half the time that's in the middle of somebody's swimming pool.
Yeah.
So, if in this case, we have the luxury of putting them 100 feet from the wetlands. And it also is more than 100, well, about 100 feet from the house, and so that,
Right.
That doesn't,
These two don't worry me. It's this one here being so close to the driveway, this one I might would want to pull this one back maybe to the 75 and have it go from here to here, just to give them a little bit more room for maintaining the driveway right along that edge there.
and maybe, rather than move along this way, get you a little more distance, somewhere, let's just say somewhere in this circle. How does that sound?
Just pulled it down the blue line a little bit?
Either pull it here or pull it there.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. We'd be talking right around where the actual number 100 is on the,
Sure,
so right around that there.
sure.
And coming back along that 100 to the curve, another one back here along the 50.
Yeah, I had it just outside the circle of life there.
And you're talking about the usual granite markers that,
Yeah.
Just a little bit further back?
I mean, that's,
So what have we got?
whoever puts it in
5,
is gonna be off by a few
Total of
feet anyway.
6? So can you give me a textual description of where each one is going?
Yes.
You know, you referenced the wetland flags or
At
something.
the,
We'll show it on the plan too. We'll add this
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
revised plan.
but I want to put that,
It's-
usually I
it's-
like to put it into the permit so that
it's,
it's,
it's near the erosion control marker at the, property line, where it says EC. It's where the 25-foot no-build kicks out to the 144,
Adjacent to wetland flag 12.
sort of, yeah. And then what are we gonna call this one? The one at the angle there?
It'd be at the hard angle. It's the transition between the silt sock erosion control and the hay bale erosion control. So it'd be at that corner where the transition changes.
And then about on the 162 contour where it cuts across the 100-foot buffer. And the existing, what are you, 150, 152, the 152 contour, the existing 152 contour where it intersects the 100-foot line, well, then it sort of goes along that. And then just outside the 100-foot well where it intersects the 100-foot buffer. Or you can just look at the map.
And it'll be, like I said, added to our revised plan, so reference to the approved plans.
Are you specifying exactly where the seed mix goes versus a lawn seed
the
mix?
reason why I like.
So
to
we're
put it-
proposing that anything within the 100-foot buffer is going to be the seed mix, and anything on a slope greater than 3 to 1 as we come around here, so even outside of the buffer,
Something.
we'll have
Yeah.
that seed mix. Anything up on the flat where we get to the yard, the backyard, that is potentially lawn that they would be
Best
using
thing
for
is
their regular yard.
Physical
So
things.
basically,
can
roughly
go and
anything
say,
from
oh, yeah,
contour
that flag
164 up
go there.
is probably lawn?
Correct. Anything where essentially we go from a flat slope to a 3 to 1 would be using that conservation seed mix. So anything with a 3 to 1.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, but I don't
Right.
think that's the steep. But
Yeah.
in any event, it's right around there, so they have,
And we may find that the individual who ends up building the house on here doesn't want to maintain a lawn and may choose to
With
use
what,
that conservation seed mix
management?
even further.
invasive.
Right, so that happens a lot.
No,
when
not on.
People who are
not on
not
a
interested in
single
maintaining large lawns.
family home.
I'm just looking, so that gives them about
Eventually.
These are a
maybe.
reasonable amount of
40,
lawn
50
if they
feet
want
off
a
the,
reasonable
off
You
the
know what I
house,
mean?
yeah.
We're
And they have a whole
still kind of in the
backyard.
early
And they have a whole
stages
side yard,
with
if they want.
subdivisions, large subdivisions.
I mean, this is gonna be pretty steep here.
Yeah.
That's dropping,
Yeah, so that's 3 to 1, so for every
mean,
3
this is
feet,
small.
you're rising 1.
Yeah, I
So it's
know.
usually 6 feet in
Technically, it's
between
sub-
each 2-foot contour, which is mowable.
If we bring that up.
Yes, it is.
It's steep.
If you're careful.
Right, and even 2-to-1, that's
So?
what we used to do around septic systems
Well, you
before it
don't
went
want
to
to be going
3-to-1.
too fast, and you don't want to take
Ask
any
the
hard
question
corners.
of
Right.
Greg, how many
If you're riding.
invasive species are there?
Greg, did you happen to see any invasive species, any evidence of invasive species when you were there?
Not many. I mean, there was some out near the road. I think there was some multiflora rose and maybe some glossy buckthorn, but the rest of the lot itself was,
Would you recommend having them remove those?
honestly, it wasn't memorable, so I don't
Okay.
think there's a ton.
Because, you know, that's been a new concern of ours, especially when we're talking about a new little mini subdivision here.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is it looks like, it doesn't look like they're gonna be bringing in a ton of material. You know, a lot of
Because we
times,
had that issue recently too with knotweed.
yeah, the soil
They had some
amendments can be
fill.
problematic.
Yeah, they brought knotweed in.
Yep, yep, but we didn't see any knotweed out here, no Phragmites. There might have been some Japanese barberry in random spots, but nothing memorable. I don't think it would make sense to do any type of invasive species eradication out here
Okay.
or management. But I do think there should probably be a condition, if there is the need to de-water, that it just be outside the buffer zone and not, you know.
Yeah, excellent.
There appears to be a high-ish water table out here. And I know they have a foundation drain, which is not uncommon. That's just groundwater. And
Okay.
that won't be a problem moving forward.
All right, any other, are we happy with what we've got?
Do we want to specify the maximum amount off the edge of the driveway they can have as regular lawn? Or do we not want to say anything about it? Meaning like on the way up, like do we want to say you can't exceed?
Is he talking about planting grass seed next to the driveway?
Oh, planting,
The conservation mix,
just the
correct?
conservation seed.
I don't think we have to.
Correct, but as you indicated, you know, as they're gonna come through and they plow the driveway, there'll be snow that'll pile up on the edges, so we're not planning on mowing, going down that hill at a 3-to-1 slope. It's gonna be that conservation seed mix, but there will be a shoulder, you know, a shoulder that's maintained there.
I mean, so if you want to add that language, I guess I appreciate that language, that,
So it looks like the
Saying.
contours on the plan are about a 2.5 to 3 foot, you know, on average, probably about a 2-foot shoulder as drafted. Although it's, you know, it's not specified to be gravel or grass. There is about a 2-foot flat area off the pavement, flattish as it starts to slope off. And that should be plenty of room to plow and without impacting the stability of the paved surface.
You guys going to be able to get all your equipment in there, in that 10 feet?
Oh, yes.
They'll be cutting down all those trees.
I want to see some of those trucks go in there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tight turn because it's a small road to begin with, we're coming off of, but the 10-foot wide driveway access itself is pretty common.
Okay. I think what if we do some like before and after pictures or before and during pictures? So we're clear on where that 25-foot no disturb zone is? I don't know, what does everybody think?
yeah.
And I imagine there'll be a pre-activity meeting and the erosion controls will be in place, so during that, the commission will be able to measure from that flag to make sure it's 25 feet. And
Why are we having any?
The good news is because the commission asked to do a site walk and have it all staked out in advance, the stakes are there, so once they get going, they'll just be able to come right through and lay the erosion control in that we've already staked out for them that never really
Right.
changed, so.
Now, the
All
idea
right.
is none of this is getting touched until after April 15th, right?
Well, at this point, they're looking to market it and find somebody who's interested in buying it, and then they're gonna have to go through the design process for their home, get an architect, so this is likely not gonna happen anytime soon anyways, so, this is just at this point to get it to an approval state, so we can then, have the interested buyer, set a closing date, and then they can go through their design side of it as well. But any condition as to, construction season that the commission has, as part of your bylaw would be included as part of your special conditions anyways, and they would have to adhere to that.
I think November 1st is probably more of an issue than April 15th.
Well, also, they need to know what they're getting into, because we've,
All right, so-
Surprised before?
yes.
So I'll make a motion that we close the hearing and issue a permit and orders of condition for Assessors Map 9, Lot 2, including the things we discussed, such as the proposal from the applicant for a tree planting and shrub planting plan, 6 granite markers as discussed, with location to be documented, and all dewatering will be done outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. I think those are the only specific things that we needed to mention besides regular boilerplate stuff. Is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, any final discussion on this?
Sorry, what were you gonna ask?
There's one
I was gonna wait
question.
for discussion, if I could ask one question.
Yeah.
The 6 markers, does Groveland have a placard that they
Yeah,
provide,
we
or-
have a sheet that we can send you.
And so we'll put the little placard on.
Yep.
I think, okay, so
Yep.
with placards.
Okay. Guess we're ready to take a vote. Terry?
Well, I'm still not happy, but I'm not gonna hold things up, so I'll just vote nay and let you guys pass it.
Tom?
Next time come order. Next time carry order the special, the 2 for 6.
What is this?
Wait. Yes. I vote aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Stephanie?
I wanna vote nay as well, actually.
Okay. Mike, yes. Fred?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes then,
4 to 2.
4 to 2, yes, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
So when do we get the final?
Greg, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. If there's any more questions, you know where to find me.
Yeah, I think
you've done a
if,
good job representing both sides, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
if you could just help with the suggestions like we spoke about, just so,
Yeah.
so we can be more specific on the order.
And there's still room in the budget to review the planting plan, if the commission wants me to take a peek at that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
just
Greg.
take a cursory look at it. And thank you for getting all the updates that Greg
Yeah.
put in.
I'll have you their final revised plan, like, except for the end of the week, so that way Greg will have an opportunity to look at it.
You were actually very articulate.
Yeah.
Very articulate.
Surprisingly articulate. No, I'm just busting them.
He's been in this room way too often.
I-
Okay,
All right, so it's Annie's turn for,
We need to close the.
I was gonna say, we didn't make our 8
Okay.
o'clock.
oh, right,
Should we close the hearing?
yeah, we did, but make a motion to close the public hearing section of the meeting.
Second.
Okay. Terry,
Aye?
Tom,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Mike, yes, Fred,
Aye.
yes, okay. All right, so,
Thanks, Greg. You too.
thanks.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Greg.
Do-
Last thing on the agenda is Annie's time to give us some updates.
Oh, sure, he did that.
No,
No,
She made Mike go first.
no, she did not.
She didn't.
Not leaving yet.
Mike, this may be too little after the fact. I'm assuming for the order of conditions, we're gonna want an updated plan, which it sounds like he's gonna get by the end of the week.
Sounded like he
but-
was getting ready, he was
Yeah,
already
okay, I
doing
just-
it in his mind.
Right, I just wanna make sure that
Yeah.
happens before we.
What I was trying to do is not trying to give them every opportunity to supply what we need to write the permits without having to say, oh, well, we'll wait until the next time, you
Right.
know.
No, I think it was reasonable.
But we certainly could have done that. And if it was a larger subdivision, I would have said, you know, we'll see you next month.
My fear is this is gonna be sold to somebody, and they're gonna be like, ooh, I got approval, boom, and
Yeah, but
they
they've
look at all
got
the
to,
fine print. That's-
no, but that's why we are very fortunate to have a person like Annie working for us, because as soon as the building inspector gives them the go-ahead, then Annie's out there looking at it,
Right.
and we have pre-construction meeting and everything else. So
Yep.
I think we've got a lot of protection built into our process.
And do we have the ability to call somebody in to educate them when they buy something like this, or?
No, I mean, if I were buying something, I would go, something like this, I would go to the commission and say, can you explain this permit to me?
Well, we enforce now actually the requirement that it's recorded, the order of conditions are recorded at the registry of deeds before.
Oh,
it
yeah.
starts, right? So we were a little bit too lax 10, 15 years ago on that, and people would
So-
claim,
I didn't know.
How long have you been on the commission now?
Me? I don't know.
Too long.
He doesn't even remember. They
2004.
don't remember.
Yeah.
He was somewhere in the
It
1960s.
was, it was before recorded history.
Huh.
All right, Annie's back.
Yes. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking while we were talking about the school, West Newbury did issue an enforcement order against them for the issues that they were having with runoff. They've been working together to sort it out. I just wanted to give you that update. And then 104 King Street, there were some questions about moving forward with that. Obviously, they'll be filing a Groveland notice of intent, but, so in our bylaws and rules and regulations, we don't specifically call out noticing requirements for local permitting. And so the applicant obviously wants to make this as quick and easy as possible. But they just wanted to know, you know, if we were still going to be upholding the DEP's noticing requirements. That's required even though it's for work. They're not asking to do any new work. It's just work that's already been permitted. Right, that kind of explains it.
Yep, so I had suggested that they just advertise in the one newspaper
Yeah.
and mention the town common as a cheaper alternative, so.
Mhm.
Are we all right with that?
Yes.
I mean, it's more our procedures, we don't have that written anywhere.
Yeah, and that's, you know, moving forward, like the planning and zoning board both have rules and regulations that very clearly state their requirements for things like that. So I think it'd be something that the commission might want to, you know, do moving forward, because it, like, in those rules and regulations, it also talks about, God, I don't even, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything that's in them, but kind of just running of in their cases, boards. Kind of more the administrative stuff, I guess, that's not spelled out in bylaws
Right.
all the time. And it also, it's not something that would have to go to town meeting. It is something that would have to get voted on by the commission and then posted with the town clerk, but so it becomes an official document that we are binded to, but it doesn't change the bylaws or anything like that.
Right. We have a number of procedures, things like the granite markers, you know, we want to do something with tree replacement, so it might make sense to pull that all together into a procedures document and get it all voted on and posted
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, that'll be a big project, but I think it would help, I think, a lot of people navigating our local application
Yeah.
process. Because we do have something, but it's not binding,
Yeah.
you know, so
Just get your team on it.
I'll get them working on it first thing tomorrow. But okay, so I'll just tell them town common for the March 8th meeting.
Yeah.
All right.
Just out of curiosity, given the, that we're in 2023, would the town ever consider having some mechanism to just post things like this on the town website? And, I mean, frankly, who reads a newspaper anymore, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not, definitely not in particular to this, and specifically to this one, because I'm on a butter, but just in general, is there
Yeah.
any discussion like that going on at town?
So there's discussion like that going on throughout the state. I was at the Mass Municipal Association conference a couple weeks ago now, and MMA and other groups associated with them have been looking into that, because first, planning and zoning, the public notice procedure is hard and fast. Like it really matters in
Right.
those cases. I mean,
It's written into
Mass General Law.
the law.
Yeah, it's beyond just like the Wetland Protection Act regulations, which is where we find our guidance. But this is like MGL, and so you're right. No one reads newspapers anymore.
Don't
You
say
mean
that,
hard
though.
copy what do you mean? Because I read newspapers all the
Yeah,
time.
no,
Multiple
No one
different-
looks at, when you're looking at a newspaper online, the legal notices aren't there. Like, you have to.
You have to
they're
look, you
not-
have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's not like you just flip by the page in a hard paper anymore and you see the legal notices. Like, you have to go looking for
And
them
who
on
reads
the
the legal
website.
notices even when they're printed, when you had a newspaper subscription?
Yeah, so it is something that they're looking into, but it would require a massive,
Start- quite a
massive
start, too.
change in legislation.
you know who's against that? The newspapers.
The newspapers. And they made,
It's keeping them alive.
to do a public notice in the Eagle Tribune is between $300 and $500.
Right. Not because that's how much the cost ink is to print the doggone things. It's because
That's how they
between those and funeral announcements, that's the
obituaries.
only money they get.
Yeah, and then now the certified return receipts, the little green cards, I think those are up to $8 or $9.
Well, you can do the whatever through the post service is also fine. It's like an automatic. You don't need the green cards, it's cheaper, I forget what they call it. Where the post office verifies I put it
Return
in that
receipts?
guy's mailbox.
Oh, I mean,
Proof
again,
of mailing.
though, in the regulations, there were certified mail return receipt.
Yeah.
No, I get it, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, as a
I mean, for our
resident,
local, like I was saying, for our local applications and things, we can change that. We can make those decisions because it's our jurisdictions alone for local permitting. But like for the notice of intent and RDA, and then like I'm thinking my planning and zoning applications,
yeah. No, I get it,
which is
I
frustrating.
think nowadays, like, if you're a resident, you should be able to go to the website and say, here's my email address, anytime there's like, here's the notices that come up, I wanna have an email saying this was filed.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
people can choose to get involved or not.
It's really smart.
They want,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's gonna buy paper,
I'm trying to remember the last time I bought a newspaper.
so.
It's probably
Anyways.
2019 in New Orleans.
Anything else?
Not really. I still haven't heard back from Martha with Chesterton. I know she had to have a meeting with her supervisors before getting that sorted, but again, it's still only February, so there's
Yeah.
plenty of time to organize something.
Yeah.
And then other than that, everything's, from what I can think of off the top of my head, is going well. Nothing that I'm aware of new coming down the line.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Well, just mention that our next meeting
It's written down.
Is March 8th.
is March 8th.
Oh, and you had a tentative, we had,
Uh,
because I couldn't open that.
At, Eric Harper's lot. He's still, I mean, he's out of the country right now, so I was gonna email him closer to the end of the month, just because,
Just cuts.
I mean, I feel like scheduling wise, it'll probably make more sense for him to know what he's up to, but yeah, with the 3rd or 4th of March.
Okay, so potentially,
Yeah,
You'll keep us posted.
yeah.
I think it was the 3rd you have in your correspondence.
It is, yeah.
all right, was
Well, I'm
there a
off both those
second on
days.
that?
There was, I seconded.
Okay, so Terry,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Bill,
Thank you.
Aye.
Stephanie,
Aye.
Mike, yes, Fred?
Aye.
Thanks so much, Fred.